Greetings, my nine little mosh pit, and a few months back, I watched this video by the channel I Am a Dot. This video discusses 3 examples of video games where the player character isn't the main character, one of those games being Hi-Fi Rush. As many of you know, I'm a massive fan of Hi-Fi Rush, and considering Peppermint is probably my favorite character from the game, I decided I wanted to make my own video that focuses entirely on the thesis of Peppermint being the main character of the game, while also diving into why Chai's role as a secondary lead is still critical to her overall storyline. I highly recommend everyone go watch Dot's video after this. I'll leave a link in the description below. I'm also going to preface this by saying I don't consider myself the best with constructing analysis like this, but I do love both this game and the character, so I want to start making meaningful content based around it. With that said, let's begin with a simple question. What makes someone the main character of a story? Well, usually the main conflict is connected to the protagonist, usually in some relation to their core story arc. This is something that's easy to connect back to Peppermint. Her reason for standing up against Vandelay Industries is because of her family. Roxanne, her mother, was overthrown by Kale, who later in the story is revealed to be her brother. This means both her reason for fighting and who she is fighting against are her family, creating what I consider to be a very compelling motivation for Peppermint. She ran off to fight Vandelay on her own, and kept her connection to Kale secret from the rest of the team to avoid possibly being assumed to be as evil as him. This is a notion Chai hand waves away once the truth comes out from Peppermint during Track 8, a history lesson.
I know what you probably think. You think—
Who cares? Did you think we wouldn't talk to you anymore? We got this far because of you. We're all here because of you.
Yeah, but—
And I'm here fighting because of what you found, and what you're trying to stop.
Peppermint is surprised by this, but at this point in the story, this gesture shows the audience how far Chai has grown as a character since the start of the game. Chai's no longer the selfish man he was when the game started, and him showing this verbal compassion towards Peppermint in her moment of vulnerability is a big way for the game to convey his growth. But in relation to my thesis, it is also a major scene for Peppermint, as it shows that her original stereotype of Chai was unfounded and untrue. What do I mean by this? Well, Chai meets Peppermint first. It's actually another prime example of why the two of them are the game's 2 protagonists. Chai's involved in the rebellion against Vandelay because of Peppermint's recruitment, something he at first rejected multiple times but sticks with after he blew her cover to Kale, who, if you noticed, responds with vocal surprise upon hearing Peppermint's name.
Peppermint and I are gonna kick your ass with your own tech.
Peppermint.
If you recall, in Track 8's presentations, which you cannot skip on repeat playthroughs, Kale had created the false narrative that he was an only child. He has no love or care for Peppermint because she doesn't benefit Kale's bottom line. He's incredibly selfish. It's what makes him the perfect villain against Chai, as him being the bad guy helps Hi-Fi Rush's whole theme of selfishness versus selflessness. However, I am once again roundabouting to make this about Peppermint. Peppermint at the start of the game has a clear distrust of men. She says just don't run off with her to Chai in Track 1.
I get out of here?
better not run off with her.
This is likely seen as a throwaway line by most players, probably even you, but mixed with all the previous statements regarding Kale, it's easy to connect the dots in regards to how Peppermint's first dislike of Chai could be connected to how Kale made her feel. This is why, despite not seeing him as the main character, I still think Chai is important to the story of Hi-Fi Rush. Because without him, Peppermint's arc can't happen. Peppermint left home post her mom disappearing because it wasn't really a home for her without Roxanne there. It's clear that Peppermint has nobody to rely on, and due to Kale, she was very distrusting of men, as I stated prior. Chai broke that wall. One could easily argue that Chai gives Peppermint something she never had prior. Chai was the brother that Kale never was for her. I know that statement isn't objective to her relationship with Chai. The relationships of the main characters are written in a way where it could be interpreted in multiple ways, because regardless of how you see them, you know the team love and trust each other by the end of the game. However, I word it this way because Chai is everything Kale wasn't for Peppermint. The two argue like siblings would, but they also still trust and care about each other. Again, like siblings would. This is a bond Kale never had with Peppermint. I mentioned it earlier, but he literally wrote Peppermint out of his life story in the museum, for fuck's sake. I'd distrust men too if I was Peppermint. I mentioned this particular aspect because I can imagine some people will see the title of this video, hear the thesis, and then assume that Peppermint being the main character would mean Chai's place in the plot is meaningless. However, this is a closed-minded way to view a narrative. I feel like too often people will think a main character is the only one whose story should be focused on. But that line of thinking is how you end up with people deflecting the critique of how Helluva Boss over-focuses on Blitz's story by going, well, he's the main character, of course the show's gonna focus on him. Despite the fact that Helluva is supposed to have 4 main characters: Blitz, Millie, Moxie, and Luna. Hilariously, also voiced by Erica Lindbeck, the voice of Peppermint. Meanwhile, the story of Hi-Fi Rush actually manages to develop all 4 of its leads: Chai, Corsica, Macaron, and of course the discussion of today, Peppermint. Peppermint being the main protagonist doesn't make the role of Chai any less important to the story, and the possibility of someone thinking that's what I would be trying to say is simply ridiculous to me. So I felt it important to not only focus this essay on why I see Peppermint as the main protagonist, but also on how Chai's role in the story is still crucial to not only the game's plot, but also Peppermint's arc throughout said story. Chai may not be the main protagonist, the story may not have as much stake for him as it does Peppermint, but he's still a vital part of making the story of Hi-Fi Rush work as seamlessly as it does. I compare Chai's role in Hi-Fi Rush to Ladybug's role from the movie Bullet Train. He's basically been thrown into someone else's conflict, but it still plays a vital role in helping resolve said conflict in spite of this fact. Hi-Fi Rush is a game that's important to me. I've made this no secret over the last 2 years since it released in 2023. While many who barely know me will think my only fixation from this game is on Chai because I'm horny for him, this isn't the case by a long shot. He's not even my favorite character from the game. That would go to Peppermint. I resonate heavily with Peppermint. I see a lot of myself in her personality, her design, and her story. Her fear of being rejected due to her connections to Kale, her expertise at creating, her personality that can come off hostile to most. It all resonated with me, and it's why she's my favorite character in the game. After watching Dot's video, this seed was planted in my head about how maybe this character I loved really was the main character despite Chai's role as the player character. And I wanted to briefly discuss it in a recorded format. But I also wanted to make it clear that Chai, and by extent the rest of the cast, are still important parts of the story, even with this alternative reading of the plot. I hope to do more Hi-Fi Rush video content on this channel here or there, since sadly the game is severely lacking in proper YouTube content based around it. My main goal right now is to finish my animated pilot Curse Blockers, and get that out above anything else video-wise. Anyway, thanks for watching, and next time you play Hi-Fi Rush, maybe you'll take in the story a little differently than you did before. See you later.